Today we're going to run through the installation of Perspective version 1.3.1 onto a server machine. This will be a standalone installation of Perspective. We'll begin by downloading the Perspective 1.3.1 installation at lensec.com/downloads. There you will find the installation suite, a documentation folder, other tools, and prerequisites. We'll start by downloading the Perspective VMS Suite version 1.3.1. The prerequisites needed on this machine will be Microsoft SQL Express or Microsoft SQL version 2008 or 2012. That can be installed on this machine as a standalone or can be accessible through a network. Depending on your firewall settings or your browser settings, the executable, because it is not widely distributed, may come up as being flagged. Simply choose to keep that option, and then you can download and install the executable. The wizard will also check for other prerequisites, such as Microsoft.NET 4.0. Upon running the wizard, it will tell you that the default files will be stored in C Program Files x86 Lensec Perspective VMS. Remember, your archives and your database are stored in separate locations. These files are just your application and your service configuration files. So if you're concerned about space, mind that the archives and the database, your larger files, are stored elsewhere. And you can set those parameters in different places within Perspective VMS. So again, this is just the application files themselves. We're going to run through a custom installation today. You have the option of complete or custom, but when we go through custom, you'll be able to see all of the different options that you would have. This demonstration is for a standalone instance of Perspective VMS, so we're going to install all of the application and services. If you were just installing a distributed instance of Perspective, you may only choose to install the streaming service or the administration service and discard the rest. But again, this demonstration is for all services to be installed onto a standalone machine. So these will be installed again in the same program path as mentioned before. Now it's going to ask you which instance of SQL will you be connecting to for your database. In preparation for this tutorial, we installed Lensec SQL Express onto this particular server. But if you have a SQL Express on a separate location, you could browse that here. We're also going to use server authentication today as opposed to Windows authentication. You have the option of using either, depending on your configuration and your network preferences. The name of the database catalog will be Perspective VMS. During this time, the wizard will check to see if there is a database already created and whether or not this is performing an upgrade onto the server. If this is a new installation, it will tell you that this database will be created if it does not exist on the target server. The next step in the installation is asking you to choose an admin password. By default, Lensec does not create an administration password for you or a backdoor. This is your option to create an administrative password that will allow you access into the software. Be sure you annotate or write this down so that you will be able to access the software after installation. Today, I'm going to use a simple password of admin1234. The username, as you can see, will by default be admin. And now you can go ahead and begin the actual installation process. During this time, the Lensec wizard will be installing all of the different components, drivers, and app pools that are necessary for running Perspective VMS. Perspective VMS is a web-based application, so it does rely on IIS, or Internet Information Services. As mentioned previously, it also relies on Microsoft.NET 4 framework to be installed. If you don't have .NET 4 framework installed prior to installing the wizard, The wizard will prompt you that you will need to install it and will run that installation for you. Depending on your server configuration, you might need to reboot after that stage of installation. If you already have .NET 4 Framework, no reboot or installation will be necessary. Another prerequisite that may be needed on your server or workstation will be the instance of Microsoft Silverlight. If you don't have Silverlight on your workstation, when trying to launch Perspective, you will get a message indicating as such. It will ask you to install Microsoft Silverlight, which you can do directly from the website redirect or from microsoft.com/getsilverlight. As the wizard continues to finish, you can see that the database objects are being created and it's installing the initial data. We will take a look at the default data that's installed with Perspective version 1.3.1, including default user groups, default camera, default server, and default users. And that's all there is to the installation wizard of Perspective VMS. At this point, Perspective VMS is installed onto your computer. However, to properly license Perspective VMS to meet with your edition and your camera parameters, you will need to run the server license tool generation utility. That can be found in the other tools folder of the lensec.com/download. The application is called Lensec License Code Generator Setup. You can download that file and execute. Again, this is for new installations of Perspective. If you already have Perspective installed on other machines, you don't need to run this more than once. The server code generator is a very simple installation. That installs a very basic program, and we'll launch on finish here, that will match a code from this particular server. This code can be sent to Lensec to verify with the purchase order or the customer account that this instance of Perspective is going to be installed on. With that, Lensec will send back a license key to use. The license key is important because it gives you, the user, the opportunity to log into Perspective. To do this, all we'll do is we'll grab this code, we'll copy this to the clipboard, and we'll put this in the web link that will be sent to you from lensec.com. Here you'll put your integration company. And your email address. The phone number that's best to reach you today in case there are any questions on this user account. And of course the end user account where you're installing to. Let's say that we're installing this to Smith's offices. And if you have a purchase order or a project description, you can enter that here. That will help our technicians make sure that we can match this code to the right purchase order. If you don't have a PO number, a project description will be fine. And you will enter the code that you copied. So this is the server generated code. If you have any other questions or comments, you can fill them in here. This processed ASAP. All license keys will be generated within 24 to 48 hours. But again, if you need something done more quickly, please contact Lensec directly at our corporate offices, 713-395-0800, or provide some information in the general comments field. Go ahead and hit submit, and that code will be sent to you. Once you have the license key sent back to you via email, you can then launch your instance. Perspective will be installed on this machine as the local host. If you are running from another client machine or your personal laptop, you can direct to the IP address of the server itself / Perspective VMS. You can also choose the loopback IP address if you're on the server of 127.0.0.1. Now, once we've entered the server code and we've requested our license key from Lensec, Lensec technicians will email back a license key for you to use. The license key will match the parameters of the purchase order for your particular installation. Upon entering the license key, you can select OK, and you are ready to log in to Perspective. If you remember from the beginning of the installation, we used the administration password of admin1234. And now we have a working instance of Perspective VMS. Let's take a look at a couple of the default parameters that are installed with 1.3.1. We'll go to Administration, and we'll take a look at the administration groups. These user groups are installed with default permissions that allow you to quickly add users with select rights. A to be assigned group is available for any other users that you want to bring in from Active Directory or any other database while not having their parameters assigned just yet. Other defaults include a default camera. This camera can be edited. You can change the IP address, change the name, and change the model type and use this camera. Or you may simply choose to keep it as a reference point and copy this camera to create your other models. Finally, a default server will be set up for you. This default server, the demo server, can be and is designed to be this particular server that you're working on. You may choose to change the name and set the permanent IP address of this server. This can be used and does not have to be deleted or changed or does not have to be deleted or duplicated. Thank you for watching this installation tutorial on Perspective VMS version 1.3.1. Please be sure to check out our video release notes on this version, as well as our documented release notes, administration guide, and installation guide. If you have any other questions, please contact support at www.lensec.com.